Have you been told you have a slow metabolism, or are you having trouble losing weight and you've done everything possible you can do with food? Then you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for this interview. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I have an interview with my friend, Matt Maruca, who is the founder of the Light Diet, as well as Raw Optics. We go all into metabolism and light, how light affects our health, and so much more. I definitely think you guys are going to enjoy this interview. So please make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, so the video gets out to more people. I also want to take a quick moment to let you guys know there's a lot of stuff down in the information section. When Matt and I talk about the difference between Raw Optics and something that you can just buy on Amazon, I did reference a couple of videos that Matt has done on his channel, The Light Diet, and I linked those down in the show notes below for you guys. And I also want to mention I will be doing a free 3-day course called a Circadian Kickstart that's coming up soon. So if you want to get in on that course while it is available for free, please make sure you sign up for my newsletter in the show notes also below. And if this information sounds very, very enticing to you and you want to start implementing it right away, I have done 3 webinars that will walk you through all of these things step by step. And those are also going to be linked down in the show notes below. Last thing before we jump into this interview, I want to thank Raw Optics for sponsoring today's video. Now, these are my screen lenses. Obviously, I am not wearing them outdoors. You never want to wear these outdoors, get all of that beautiful natural sunlight. But if I'm on the computer or in an office with really bad lighting or in a building with really bad lighting, this is a really great way to protect your eyes as well as your circadian rhythms. So check out Raw Optics. You can use my code Carnivore Yogi in all caps. That'll be down in the show notes below to save 15% on anything over at Raw Optics. I hope you guys enjoyed today's interview, and please, if you have a question for us, leave it in the comments below. Matt and I are going to do another live stream at the end of this month, and I will make sure that we post it onto YouTube for everyone who wants to watch it. But we'll check the comments of this video to make sure that we don't miss any of your questions. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Bye.
Hey, how are
you? I'm doing great. How are you? Pardon the minor delay, technical stuff. So here we are.
No worries. I was just blabbing here.
That's good. I think it's good to warm people up and get a little bit of people in the room anyhow. So
yeah, we've got a good audience, and I was just talking about sunrise, how I'm excited about my new house. I can actually watch it from the backyard.
Nice.
Instead of like being out in my front yard in my pajamas barefoot looking like a weirdo every morning. Nice.
Congrats on the new place. How long ago did you move there?
We haven't moved yet. We bought it in the beginning of March, and we're doing a bunch of weird stuff. We're hardwiring. We painted the whole house with Y-Shield. Like we're doing all the quantum stuff to the house, and
cool.
Yeah, we're building a fence around the backyard to keep the dog and the kiddo safe, but hopefully soon, next month, we're hoping to move in, but that's when my sunrise situation will change, which I'm excited about.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I have a great view out of the back of the place where I'm staying right now in California, and the sunrises here. I'll just turn my camera around. There's like a little parking lot and some houses back in this alley, but then there's just sunrises right over all these palm trees and beautiful green trees. It's kind of hard to see how beautiful it is, but the greenery is perfect. So I get to sit right at my desk and watch the sun come up. It's amazing.
That's perfect. Yeah. How long have you been in California? You were in Miami recently, and now you're out in California?
Yeah. I'm just here for a few weeks, and then I'll be on the road. I'll be going to Texas for a paleo conference this week, and then lots of good stuff going on. Lots of movement.
Exciting. Well, I'm so excited to chat with you. I sent you a bunch of questions I think that people had sent in. And so if you want to just introduce yourself briefly, I think a lot of my audience probably knows who you are, but if you want to do that, then maybe we can jump into some questions.
Yeah, of course. Well, my name is Matt Maruca. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I have gotten into health and wellness and this whole world of light out of my own personal experiences that led me to seek for some solutions and some answers. And I ultimately came to find that the body is an energy system based on energy, just like everything in the universe, actually. All matter is just condensed and slowed down energy. And so I came to learn in that process that one of the most profound things influencing us is light, because we are light, and therefore the light we're exposed to has a profound influence on everything in our body. And so much so that the food we're consuming is also just various forms of condensed light, and that has a role as well. And so, yeah, I've kind of been putting together this idea or protocol called the Light Diet over the past few years from different teachers I learned from, and making this information relatable while focusing on keeping the core essence of all the science, but making it just so people can easily utilize it, and looking at Western science and looking at ancient Eastern wisdom and techniques for how to cultivate our inner light, which is our soul, as some say. It's kind of who we actually are. And that's what I focus on. And so to a certain degree, that's who I am. I guess the question could go a lot deeper than that, and I might not be able to answer it depending on how deep we go, but that is the surface level.
Yeah, and I encourage anyone that's not following Matt to do that. And his website, talking about the Light Diet, like he said, there's a ton of science, which we'll jump into with some of these questions today, and he does a great job of presenting that. But it really does, light really does affect our health in so many ways. And I think Matt does like a beautiful job of breaking that down and making that really simple for anybody who's just curious about, okay, does light actually affect something like my metabolism, right? Like, which I think is our first question. If somebody has issues with their metabolism, slow metabolism, what are the metabolic benefits of doing something like wearing blue blockers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so it's worth examining the question like metabolism. What is metabolism? And metabolism, as I've come to understand, because, well, we learned about it in biology class in high school, but the answers they gave weren't very satisfactory to me. And so metabolism is just the process of processing fuel and excreting the waste products. That's the basic biological definition of metabolism. Once I started to learn about these mitochondria, these cellular engines, I came to learn and understand that metabolism is really, it happens in our mitochondria, because they're the part of our body, the part of our cells that's taking in fuel and raw materials and breaking it down and releasing the energy and utilizing the byproducts, and then pushing out waste and so on. And that's primarily all happening through the mitochondria. So like someone who has like slow metabolism or fast metabolism, those would be similar ways of saying like someone who has good mitochondrial function or bad mitochondrial function. Like slow metabolism would be, I think, more on the bad side of someone. But again, slow metabolism, well, I guess people think of that, it's like you eat food and you pack on fat. That's probably what people think when they say slow metabolism. And there's different layers, many different layers to that beyond just, well, there's just many layers to that. But at a very simple level, if someone's cellular engines don't work well, which can be due to toxins, it can be due to a variety of things, it can be due to constant stress on the body, poor beliefs and stuff, which is probably the biggest issue most people have. But one of the biggest ones that no one talks about, or very few people talk about, and therefore is like a very high leverage and very under discussed subject, meaning that the impact people can get by just putting this awareness into their life, the actions you have to take are so simple, is of course how light affects the metabolism, which is why we're speaking today. And so for someone who has this like poor mitochondrial function or slow metabolism, so to speak, the simplest thing simple things that people can do would be start going outside in the morning and getting natural sunlight in the morning, because it's such a simple process, but it basically stimulates our whole brain through our eyes, which the retina is actually a part of the brain. It stimulates the brain, and therefore it stimulates all of the glands and organs in our whole body to function as they're supposed to. Like, really simply put, like, if we get morning sunlight, that stimulus into our eye, speaking to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain, the master timekeeper, that's sending signals through the whole body, through the whole brain, pituitary gland, pineal gland. It's activating all of these systems that are responsible for controlling our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our, organ activity. And so just getting morning light is a very simple thing that people can do to, so to speak, activate their metabolism and get their body functioning the way that they're designed. So that would be a really simple starting point, and that's where I usually start. Now, conversely, to the side of the blue blocking glasses, a really great idea to consider is if you are either indoors during the day on screens, in an office, particularly under lights that you can't change. So, like, for example, I don't have my glasses on now because I have this open window right here with full spectrum sunlight. So the benefits of the sun, yeah, there you go as well. That's outweighing essentially the negative effects of screens. So during the day, since I have the flexibility to have full spectrum sunlight, I rarely use my daylight lenses. I'll only use them, for example, when I go to Austin and I'll be inside at Paleo FX conference all day. I'll throw those things on and have them all day when I'm in that exhibiting room and the speaker room and stuff, because, for brief periods, maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I wouldn't wear them sometimes, just because I like to see the colors. And below a certain threshold, I can feel that it's not having a massive damage. But beyond like 10, 20 minutes, depending on the light source, I can start to feel my eyes getting tired. And that's when I throw on the lenses and I'll be protected. Or if I want to sort of be preemptive, I'll put them on the moment I get inside and prevent that oxidative damage. But all that's to say, being under unnatural, so unnatural man-made light all day, that's another way of like slowing our metabolism, so to speak, because when our cells have the full spectrum of light, now not just the morning stimulus through the eye, but the full spectrum infrared, green, blue, violet, red, all these colors on our eyes, on our skin throughout the day, that provides essentially power for the cells to function. And that keeps, let's say, the metabolism active, And so that's really important. And if you have to be indoors, that's why you'd want to wear something like daylight lenses to protect your eyes and your brain and your nervous system from that constant overstimulation. So step one, it's like, get the morning sun. Step two is protect yourself. So get outside more during the day and protect yourself from that light when you can't. And then at night, step three would be like, have darkness at night. Now, these are just not particular steps of the light diet. These are just, if I had to give a super simplified version, these would be like 3 simple steps. But at night, we want to have darkness, because darkness, when the sun goes down, it's this really cool time when our cells get this opportunity to rest and repair and relax and rejuvenate. And that happens through darkness, stimulate, or the absence of light, really causing the brain to start flooding with melatonin and all of the cells. But as you know, of course, Sarah, if we have those bright lights on our eyes, especially LEDs and screens and TVs, they're basically saying to the brain, hey, wake up, sun's coming up. And so then the brain, therefore, won't produce the melatonin that it's supposed to. And so then that lack of melatonin, not only will you not get as tired in your experience of the world, you won't feel as relaxed and tired as you would if you were A, in darkness, B, using candles, or C, wearing raw optics sunset lenses. You won't have that natural relaxation that should, as the way it should be. But on a cellular level, your cells aren't getting that repair that they're supposed to when you finally go to sleep. They're not getting as much repair in general because of that blue light at night. And there's tons of papers and research about the effects of blue light at night disrupting the body's rhythm. And so then you're already sort of, because it's just a continuous cycle, you're now starting the next day off like on the wrong foot, so to speak, by not having that darkness and proper winding down at night. you're going to probably want to sleep in more the next day, wake up later, not have the morning sunlight. You know, as I've studied and learned more about the light diet, I would also add on a metabolic level that it's sort of interesting. This the light diet is like a triple entendre, meaning it has three meanings. One version of light is like electromagnetic radiation, so light in the sense of the light that we see and that we're talking about now that affects our body. The second we'll maybe touch on maybe later is spiritual light, because in a sense we can actually, as all the great masters and teachers spoke of, we can actually feed on spiritual light. Like, if thine eye be single, so if you're focusing your attention on your pineal gland, the single eye, your whole body will be full of light. That's a quote from the Bible, and let there be light and all this. It's common in every ancient scripture. And then the third, actually, I didn't expect, but I've come to learn it works really well, is the light diet can also be light in its mass. And the reason, meaning like light, not in electromagnetic radiation or energy, but actually light as in lacking mass, not having too much mass and heaviness. And this has been really interesting. I learned that the great spiritual masters of the East, a lot of the time they would focus on eating lighter food in general, or just less food, just like fasting a lot. And everyone I've spoken with and all the research I've come across, the number one subject or approach shown to increase lifespan in all studies is calorie restriction, like 30% calorie restriction, 30% increase in lifespan, like across the board. Those something like those numbers. It's pretty shocking. And so it's actually, and I remember when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, a friend of mine's older brother who I just looked up to, and I thought he was super cool and smart, and he got all the girls. And so one day he came home from school and we were hanging out, and I remember he said, like, I learned the coolest thing in school today, guys. Like, you know, the process of aging is actually like metabolism and burning food, which means that theoretically, if you could never eat anything, you could actually live forever. And I thought that was like really interesting. But of course I didn't think it was possible. Now, studying some of the masters of the Far East, the great masters, there are supposedly individuals who do not eat food and who supposedly do live forever. Now, that's a little more out of the realm of science, so we can leave that for a separate discussion. It's interesting to at least entertain the possibility. But so all that's to say, in our daily life, eating too much food, it does force us to burn through, let's say, our mitochondrial lifespan. And over time, that excess consumption of food, it's basically aging us, because we have to process the food through our engines, our mitochondria. And we can make new mitochondria, we constantly do, but only for so long, where after a lifetime, they accumulate what's called heteroplasmy, which is an increase in percentage of mutant DNA. And it's a natural process, like, where just over time, that's how we age. This is the research of Dr. Douglas Wallace of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So that happens just naturally. But again, the research is there, and this is all being linked together by many people much smarter than myself. Constant excess consumption of food, uses the mitochondria faster, which is increasing that percent heteroplasmy faster over time. Now, having too much artificial blue light at night, disrupting melatonin, which is the repair process, is also really not ideal. And not getting any sunlight also causes, or being under too much artificial light, also causes more production of these free radicals, these molecules, like, let's call it smoke from a fire. It's like more smoky as an engine rather than clean burning, which when we're in artificial light, it's more smoky. And when we're in natural sunlight, it's more clean burning. But so all that's to say, on top of morning sunlight, getting more sunlight during the day and protecting yourself with daylight lenses from raw optics if you have to be indoors, and then getting darkness or candlelight at night and using raw optic sunset lenses if you have light sources around. The other thing beyond the light is actually like eating less. So a big way you can disrupt cellular repair and health is by eating basically American dinner. This is like so difficult for many people because it's part of our culture, or like even European, like Spanish dinner, Italian dinner.
They eat so late.
Like 9 p.m. They're even worse than Americans in those countries. In general, a lot of Europeans, I don't know why the Spanish and the Italians got this so whacked out, but a lot of Europeans, they focus on a bigger lunch. Like, they'll have a bigger lunch, and then they'll have, like, a siesta or something to relax, and then they'll have a light dinner. And that's a really cool approach, because that's, and according to ancient Ayurveda, so Indian traditional medicine, the best time to eat isn't like your biggest meal is between 11 and 1 approximately, when the sun is the strongest. So your body can actually, it makes sense, your metabolism's the most active, your body can burn through and utilize that fuel the best. So you're going to be most efficient for all the fuel you consume. You're going to utilize it. You're going to need to eat less overall when you eat in that window, because your body's so efficient. And then breakfast should be, like, in theory, let's say lighter, because you don't want to stuff yourself where you're feeling sluggish and heavy just starting the day off. That's not a good way to start the day. And then dinner, again, should be light, like something lighter. Again, it depends what diet you're on, whether it's carnivore or pescatarian or vegetarian or vegan or whatever people are doing. Paleo, like there are different options within all those diets where you can eat like smaller portions or less. I try not to focus on particular types of food at this time, because it's something I'm experimenting with a lot myself and trying to understand. But yeah, so those are the biggest things, like general principles: food, lighter breakfast, let's say, although some people out there say you should eat huge, heavy breakfasts. From both my experience and research, the ancient wisdom that I'm tending to lean on now is not, it does not support that. Big lunch seems to be the smartest thing to do. And then the key is like going to sleep with an empty stomach, which is hard because it requires discipline and overcoming ourselves, like in the afternoon when we want to maybe stuff our faces, but like stopping before we're stuffed and actually being able to go to sleep with a little growling stomach, or just that perfect emptiness. That's how we can really start to wake up really early, like 4 or 5 a.m., for example. Some people who are really masterful, like great yogis, wake up 3 in the morning, do their meditation. Yeah. But that's really like those, between those two pieces, the light and then the light way of eating. It's a long answer, but those are really smart ways to like increase metabolic activity, keep the metabolism firing the way it's supposed to, not overload the metabolism with excess food, because that's a great way to slow metabolism down too. And that's what I would say to that question.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So if anyone wants to check out the glasses that Matt's talking about, they're linked in my bio, and you can follow Raw Optics as well. And I have a discount code. It's Carnivore Yogi if you want to get 15% off. But a lot of people that follow me, I think they're cool with the fasting. They think fasting's good, but I feel like they do it kind of the wrong way, and they don't, wrong, right, whatever, but not in an optimal way. When I tell people, like, if you want to fast, if you really want autophagy and apoptosis and all the stuff that we talk about, that deep cellular repair at night, if you're eating, maybe your first meal at 1 in the afternoon and your second meal at 8 o'clock at night, you're going to be impeding that process, right? You're not going to be able to get that deep cellular repair that you were talking about. So ideally, I always tell people, eat before sunset if you really do want to get the true benefits of fasting. And if you want to fast, maybe fast from breakfast to breakfast or lunch to breakfast the next day, instead of waiting all day to eat until, afternoon or evening, and then trying to eat that big meal before bed, right? And then because that will induce a little bit of cortisol, which is going to oppose your melatonin, which is, again, not in line with circadian rhythms, and your body's not going to get those full benefits of fasting if you do it that way. Would you agree?
Yes, for sure. I would really emphasize that point, and I would add that it's really a great way for people to conceptualize it is just imagining your body's like an engine. So when are you the most active? Like, when do you need to be sharp? Like, okay, well, you need to be sharp, let's say morning, midday. Hopefully for people who don't have to work night shifts, you don't have to be sharp going into in the later parts of the day. Again, like traditional Eastern Ayurvedic wisdom espouses that for even things like training, again, there's lots of Western scientists who will take certain studies and research and say, like, this is the optimal exercise window and this is all that. And there is some, people can believe whatever they want. I have my own perspective from my own experience, and it's shown me that more than likely these ancient perspectives are typically on point, especially when the majority of the Western science is validating what these people have spoken about meal timing and so on, these things we've already discussed. And so this, an example for for fueling the body is the most activity should be middle of the day. So in general, so it makes sense to have the fuel going in at that time when the body can use it. If people like, so I was also for a while thinking, okay, as long as I get the last bite of food in my mouth before the sun sets, for example, like I'm good. But so like that would lead to me like stuffing my face like for dinner and just hoping it was just before or maybe just after sunset and thinking that I was doing a favor for myself. And I've learned that that's really not ideal either. It's an easy way to go, but it's not the most intelligent way to go. Like to really truly be in a state of cleanliness going into sleep, like dinner, yes, before sunset for sure. In general, I mean, sunset can get pretty late in the States.
Summertime.
In the summer, like it might go down to 8. So like I'd
Yeah.
still aim for not eating past like 6, almost regardless of the time of year, and more generally, like personally, I try to eat the rest of like the end of my food before 3 or 4 every day, just to be like clean going to sleep. But like for other people, 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 at the latest in the summer. But again, like it shouldn't be like, again, let's just say someone's eating a paleo diet, just for example, like types of food that one might consider. Like I personally wouldn't recommend eating like a big steak right before bed. I mean, yes, the body can, use the protein and it's great, but before bed, it's like that heavier protein takes much more time and energy to burn through. So it's like, it'd be smarter to have that steak in the middle of the day. The body's going to be able to use it much more. And, in the evening, maybe just have like some vegetables or again, whatever else someone would want on a paleo diet that they'd want to eat. Again, for example, I know your audience is probably more carnivore, but that's just an example. So what I'm getting at is it'd be better to have breakfast and lunch and
That's what I tell people.
Not have dinner. If people say, well, breakfast makes me sluggish, like then that's a perfect sign that there's a metabolic imbalance, and that's a great place to lean into. Like start leaning into like, okay, well, don't eat breakfast if you feel like, don't eat if you're not hungry. In my opinion, it doesn't make sense. Like don't eat if you're not hungry. But I've been doing, and I'm constantly working on this because it is not easy for me. I'm getting out of years of conditioning as I learn more about this. And it's like, and I still have challenges with it. I still don't wake up every day as early as I'd like with that appetite. But in general, like I'm trying every day to figure out how can I do today and the day, every day, like live the day in such a way that I go to sleep not like fatigued and exhausted, because that's another thing that I've learned through Ayurvedic principles and just general common sense. If you go to sleep fatigued and exhausted, you're not going to wake up at 4 a.m. like fresh in general.
No.
You probably overworked yourself, so your body's going to say, I need to wake up 6 or 7 or even 8, because you're just like, ugh. And then you kind of lose. Like for me, if I'm up at 4 or 5, which is like my ideal wake up time, it's like I have the whole day. It's like the whole day is like, I crush the stuff I need to do before 9 a.m. And then the whole day is like house money. Like I'll have meditated, worked, and trained before 10 o'clock. And it's like the whole rest of the day is just like playing with house money, so to speak. And so, because the brain function, there's also tons of science, like in our proper circadian rhythm, our brain function is the sharpest between like 4 and 6 a.m. It's like, why would that be? If everyone's asleep, everyone's missing. So we've normalized a culture of waking up at 6, 7, even more like 7 or 8 a.m. it seems is like the average for most people. Like that's not normal. That's like how we can observe that people talk about the collective consciousness is like lowered. Like that's where it's happening. It's when most people are not awake in the sattvic, as they call it in Ayurveda, the clean hours of the day, clean energy. Everyone starts getting up when it's more rajas, like there's more like energy. And then everyone stays up super late into what they call the tamas energy, which is like ignorance energy, where more car accidents, more drugs, more alcohol, because everyone's nervous systems are fatigued. And similarly, like I know I'm kind of going pretty far with this, but training in the afternoon, as I was getting at earlier, it's probably not the smartest thing to go on like hardcore runs, especially in the evening, because your body's already tired, your heart's tired, your nerves are, at the end of their day. To stress them is like you're putting a lot more damage on the body, versus if you do that in the mid to late morning or even early morning. Again, depending on your interpretation of the evidence out there, I recommend like mid to late morning exercise based on what I've learned, personal experience, Western science, and Eastern philosophies integrated. I feel the best if I get my training in between, early morning and late morning before lunch. because I can really crush it and feel that fatigue, but it doesn't mess up my sleep. It doesn't pump up my cortisol in the evening. And so just back to the subject of the fasting, just to tie that up. In general, it would be much more intelligent, even though it's harder. So this is another way. We can see that what's easier is usually what people do. And so, yeah, the bird song in the background, someone says it's great here. People typically tend to do what's easier. So people say, oh, I'm fasting, but like, we can just understand on almost every level of everything. Okay, you're fasting, that's harder than just eating 3 meals a day. But in general, most of the population is doing what's easier. And what is that? Skipping breakfast, eating a big lunch, and eating a big heavy dinner, and going to sleep just like a king, like I'm so full of food and stuffed, and sleeping in. The yogic way to do it, as opposed to like the king, the hunter, as they would say. And many hunters, many carnivores I speak with are like, well, but evolutionarily, like the hunt would end and we'd stuff our faces at night. It's like, yeah, but would you do that every day of the week? Like you might be doing like twice a month, maybe. I don't know, like 3 or 4 times a month at the most. Like
you don't have a big pill every day most of the time if you really want to go there, right?
Yeah, and you probably
fasting a lot.
You fast probably like 2 weeks a month, like full the whole time. I mean, depending on where you are and how plentiful the area is, but you wouldn't be eating a ribeye probably every day. Probably not. I mean, especially because meat you didn't have freezers. So it's like, if people are going to go primal, it's like, all right, you want to go primal, like you should be hungry for like 2/3 of your time, like feeling like you're hungry, which is really healthy. And so we have this constant access to food. But the good thing, again, learning from Ayurveda that I love, so the Ayurveda and these ideas from ancient perspectives, whether you look at traditional Chinese medicine as well, they're more about evolution. So people in a lot of these health worlds I've observed and been and continued to be a part of in some respects, it's like people want to go back in evolutionary time. It's like, why is evolution about going forward? Like, why would we all want to go back to being primal and all this stuff? Like, there's benefits to going back to being more connected to nature. It's like we don't need to devolve. Like, we have these minds and the ability to observe and understand phenomena. And if we can understand that biologically, yes, if you killed an animal in the evening, you're going to eat it in the evening or late in the day. But now we know that we have a readily available supply of food. Our metabolism is more active in the middle of the day. And we know that eating late disrupts our sleep. So why, and this is what the yogis do. They know intelligently, best to eat just, in India, a lot of the time they just eat 1 meal a day in the middle of the day and that's it. And that's great too. If you can make that work. And that's a lot of the time what I've been doing now, just one main lunch, fairly heavy, take a long walk afterwards, and then I'm just good till the next day, and I'll wake up early and fresh and clear and be like super stoked because I woke up at 4 a.m. and fresh and clean and no heaviness, no sluggishness. So what I would just wrap this up, if you, for example, simple summary that a good friend and Ayurvedic doctor of mine explained to me, if someone wakes up later than like an hour before sunrise or even after sunrise, there's a sign there that something's off in their body. Their body's not waking up fresh and clean. Now this takes work to get to that place where your body's burning clean. You're going to sleep with an empty stomach. You're feeling good. You didn't overwork yourself. You didn't spend too much time on screens. You got your training and you did what you have to do for the day. And you wake up the next morning, you're fresh and clear. You do what you got to do. You have a great day. You keep your energy balanced. You meditate. You take a nap if you have to. Or like yogis, they prefer shavasana rather than nap. So you lay on your back on hard floor and just, shavasana, of course. So, those are to me some really great principles to just understand why eating a heavy dinner just isn't the best, most intelligent option.
Yeah, I agree completely. I really do. And, those are the people that are carnivore that do want to eat that late meal. I find eating like eggs is usually not something that's going to keep me up. If I eat them at like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's going to digest much differently than like a steak would at that time of day. So just anybody who's doing a more kind of ancestral diet that's like, well, what can I eat if I want to eat at that time of day? I usually think eggs are pretty well digested at that time of day. So that's just my opinion. So I guess that kind of pretty much wraps up the first one. The appropriate times to wear blue blockers would be, right, if you're on a screen, if you're indoors under those, LED lights that are causing your body stress. After sunset, you want to wear the red lenses, again, to help your body start making that melatonin. But, you know, to make the melatonin, you've got to be out at sunrise anyway. Like, you've got to get the UVA light in order for your body to get to that point of being really good at making melatonin at night, correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's generally the case. Like, a lot of studies show this and so on, having morning sunlight exposure. You know, and if someone doesn't get, again, some people out there are like, you have to see the sunrise, you know, even if you have to drive and get to the top of the hill. I wouldn't go that
I
far
just go outside.
personally. What's that?
I just go outside. I can't, I mean, they've
Yeah.
got trees and I can't usually see it over the horizon. Maybe once or twice a week I can, but don't let perfect be the enemy of good here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would echo that. It's great to get the sun gazing, the traditional practice, and I'm fortunate that the view I showed you, I get like an orb that I can sun gaze right into. It's still not a perfect horizon, but it's pretty good. But just having some morning light for 10 to 15 minutes minimum and looking the direction of the sun, even if it's blocked by trees or obscured by a mountain or something, you can still get that benefit. And the studies clearly show that morning light has a big effect on evening melatonin. Probably, I mean, not probably, but because it's setting our body's rhythm, it's getting all the pieces in motion. And as some scientists describe, it's the UVA light, for example, is actually energizing through our eyes and through the nerve circuits behind the eyes. It's actually energizing these tryptophan proteins that are going to be eventually converted into serotonin, then melatonin. So it's stimulating that circuit that's saying, hey, it's in a way, it's like, it's the light is kind of giving, it's like a messenger and an energy source. It's like coming in and the body's like, oh, we have this energy, what are we going to do with it? And it's, well, we have all these raw materials that make serotonin in these glands, and then darkness comes along and all that serotonin is going to be, you know, converted into melatonin. So that's a general way of thinking about it.
Awesome. And I saw a question pop up in the chat a while ago. I don't know if this person's still there, but they wanted to know if there is a specific test that they could take to know if they have poor mitochondrial function, which I'd love to hear your opinion on that. I think it's more symptomatic, but.
Yeah. So having looked into that a couple of times, not that I'm aware of, there are no like direct mitochondrial tests. I mean, there are things that they do in the labs in like where they're doing these studies, like on these percent heteroplasmy and these kinds of things. However, nothing commercially available that I'm aware of, but I would recommend people back to who I consider to be like the top expert in this field as far as holistic perspectives go, which is Dr. Cruz. And he has some great blogs like Redox Prescription, Redox RX, I believe, where he has like a whole list of different blogs, of lab tests that someone could do to attempt to diagnose like if they have poor mitochondria. And there's all kinds of stuff in there, like your hormone panels and all this stuff. But like a general, as you said, symptomatically, like I wouldn't worry anyone, you know, if you're like, how can I test my mitochondria bad? Like I wouldn't like lose sight of the forest for the trees. Mm-hmm. In other words, you are where you are. Like, again, I think the best test is, are you waking up? I mean, think about the healthiest top performers in the world. In general, they wake up really early and they feel good. So if you're waking up early, like an hour before sunrise or around the time of sunrise, and feeling fresh, clean, and good, then that's great. If you're waking up feeling sluggish, heavy, like something's going on, there is something more than likely with your meal timing and your body's circadian rhythm as a whole that's off. And like, again, I've been astounded. For so long, I thought it was all just about light. And then starting to work with a traditional Ayurvedic Indian medicine doctor and study from him and experience like, wait a minute, light is the main driver of our body's circadian rhythms. But within the day, there are several other factors that have nearly as profound of an effect. And these are our food, our exercise, and those are probably the two biggest: temperature and exercise. So like food, exercise. Temperature is sort of different. That's a separate conversation. That's more like therapies and things we can get into for therapeutic purposes. You probably wouldn't want to do like freezing cold ice baths before bed. Like they definitely will, wake up the nervous system. But it also, there's caveats there, because it's like, I've learned from, again, these ancient traditional perspectives, and we discussed this on our epic 3-hour podcast.
Yeah.
There's differences for men and women. Like You know, I used to think it was all kind of similar because I just didn't know, and our society kind of paints that picture. But it's like, apparently, according to some of these ancient perspectives, it's actually better for women to take it easy and relax, and probably not to go super hard on ice baths all the time, maybe every once in a while. But for men, it's like every day is the recommendation. Yeah, and actually beneficial. So it's just different energy systems. So let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. So mitochondrial function is more, I mean, if you're questioning, like, do I need to test for mitochondrial function? You kind of know, like, if your mitochondria is not functioning as well as it should, hormone imbalances. Someone just said their leptin was 102. I think leptin is a good measure of that, your, you know, mitochondrial health if you've got real high leptin. And she also wanted to know if she had a leptin of 102, besides really getting the light dialed in, what is something else that she could do to kind of bring that number down, which I think obviously meal timing is huge on that one, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I'm not a clinician. I'll first disclose that. So nothing I'm sharing is medical advice, and I'm not, let's say, certified to give particular or even qualified to give particular specific diagnosis about these specific subjects. So I'll just disclaim that that's not my area of expertise and focus. But in general, just taking the context of what we're sharing and the information, I would say, you know, first of all, Dr. Cruz, again, he's sort of the guy. If there's anyone out there who is doing this in a way that's aligned with this evolutionary biology and light and circadian rhythm timing, it's Dr. Cruz. So he's someone I would recommend people go look at if that's your, you know, situation. But I would also recommend people in these kinds of situations to Dr. Joe Dispenza, someone I've been, you know, really closely following more recently, because one of the things I see when people go down the rabbit hole of like functional medicine and or quantum medicine is they're doing all these lab tests and they're worrying about all these different symptoms and stuff, but you are fundamentally typically identifying as a sick person. And until you just stop identifying as a sick person and you start actually having a reason to live, you will continue, many people will continue to remain kind of sick because they haven't found a reason that's worth living. And so they'll just sort of live on sick. And that's how I was for years. So I'm only speaking really about myself here. You know, it was like for years I thought like, oh, if I dial in this diet or I do this, but like that was all like at an attempt to not, I was trying to live to not be sick, but I didn't have a real clear, like, I want to be alive because I want to experience the feelings of like beauty and love and joy every day, which are our birthright. You know, I didn't have that awareness that was even possible. So I feel for a lot of people, many people who do this meditation work, so putting aside even a lot of this light and meal timing and stuff, many people who do deep meditation work with Dr. Dispenza, for example, they heal because they heal an emotional belief. So I don't want to exclude that from the conversation either. Otherwise we do a huge disservice to people, making them feel like, oh, you have to figure out all this difficult stuff about your routine. It's not actually that difficult. But if you can heal like the person who is so stressed about their leptin levels on their lab test and become the person who's just so happy and excited about your life every day, that you have something worth living for, that you have, if you feel like you don't, then find it, because it's definitely out there. Like everyone, I think, goes through that period of like, what's my, not everyone, but many people, like, what's my purpose? What's my meaning? What should I do? Like, and I go through that too. Like, I think all the time about like, what am I really here to do? You know, I have this business and I'm teaching people, but like, what's the, yes, someone just asked, will this be saved on the profile? For sure it'll be saved. But it's like, what's, you know, yes, I have a business, but I'll question these things. Like, really, who are we? Where are we? You know, do I just accept that this is my life and what's going on? Or is there a deeper pursuit? And for sure, for me, it's always like, it's a deeper, like there's something deeper. I want to keep going deeper. And even though I have to run my life on the day to day, it's like, I want to spend my free time going deep. And that's a huge blessing. Some of the great masters of these days say, we're so lucky we have so much free time. We're not like rice paddy workers working in the paddies all day. Like, we have so much free time. And the Western, you know, the yogis, they say like, use that free time as a Westerner to meditate, like use it to inquire about the nature of your life and who you are. And the more I've done this, as it is like, I think it's the hardest, it can be one of the hardest things for people, because it's hard in the sense that like the very specific things that need to be overcome are the things that we've been avoiding for the longest, or not giving attention to, or bottling up. And like, it's only hard to the extent to which we've avoided, you know, certain situations or certain emotions, we turn towards fear and stress and the belief that there's not unlimited opportunity.
Yes.
in lack of, you know, the belief that there is unlimited opportunity, and we can do anything we want, and we can be happy, and we can be successful. And like, over years, and it, like, to me, I went through this as a young kid, like bottling up emotions and stuff, as many people do. And so it's only been like an unraveling process more recently to realize, like, wait a minute, I can get up every day and be like stoked about my life, and all the things that I start thinking about and there's negative emotions there, like, either I can just not deal with them, or probably more intelligently is like dive into them. And like, if I'm feeling a negative emotion about something that's like emails, which I do a lot, like way more than I ought to, it's like, why don't I just start getting at that every day and just putting time and energy into that? And somehow, by just leaning into that discomfort, and this can apply in any example beyond just like an overload of emails, but many people that might resonate with, like, because running a business or being even working for a company, you might have an overload of emails too. It's just like, it's a part of our culture. It's like, but why not just start leaning into that, give it 30 minutes or an hour every day, or more if it needs it. And like, eventually, somehow for me, and this is in any area of my life that I start doing it, it's like, all of a sudden I realize, like, shoot, it just wasn't that complicated. It wasn't that complicated. It wasn't as serious as I thought. It was never as difficult or serious as I thought. And like, all of a sudden, wait, like, I just had this feeling just for a moment this morning, because I've been pretty consistent with my meditation, is a large piece of it. Like, I did some task this morning, and then I had like this next task that I had been pushing off literally for months, which is like hiring some more help into the business, because I've been like a control freak, want to do everything, but it's like, then I don't have a lot of time, and I do end up putting myself in this exhaustion state where it affects my sleep. And I've been kind of working through that, because I eat really tight, but some days I'll still wake up late. And I look back, I'm like, I was really good, but I'm still waking up late. And I'm like, oh, Matt, it's because you pushed yourself to extreme fatigue on a few occasions, even wearing my glasses, even wearing, getting sun, even doing all the right stuff. There's something to be said about like taking care of your spirit, like, and so anyway, all that's to say, just choosing to like lean into those discomforting emotions and the things that are like scaring me, just like lean in. And somehow, like, the world just starts to open up. In that particular case this morning, I just felt like, wow, I did those things, and now I'm actually sitting here in the present moment, like free to work on this thing I've been putting off for months, and nothing was ever stopping me except my own mind telling me I have to do this first or this first, and not put myself first. And I finally just started, leaning into that task, starting to write some job descriptions, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyone listening to this who's interested in this kind of stuff, you might be interested in applying to work with Raw Optics pretty soon. You just follow my Instagram and stay tuned. But all that's to say, it's like the amount of energy, Sarah, that, and I'm sure you've experienced this, we've all have, like, that just started to be like opened up just because I leaned in that discomfort. I was like, oh my gosh, it was right there all along. Like, I could have just been doing this the last 2 months, but I was choosing to be in that loop of like stress, and I can't start this until I cleared out my email inboxes. And like, it's just a learning process.
It is. And it's kind of like watching your thoughts. Like, I know it's so funny when you had texted me, I guess it was last week, and we were in the car listening to Joe Dispenza at the time. And I was like, oh, of course you texted me right now,
perfect.
Right? I'm like, it's crazy, but it makes perfect sense, because that's a big part of my routine, of my health, is making sure that what I'm listening to, the energy that I'm surrounding myself with, is positive. So it's like Joe Dispenza, I listen to a lot of Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, like Abraham Hicks. Like, I'm always trying to, bring that positive energy in and like kind of watch my thoughts, because our thoughts, like going back around to the leptin thing and seeing yourself as the sick person with a diagnosis, I think that plays just such a huge part in our health, that I think a lot of people aren't willing to look at that, because I think that is the real work, right? Like, we can do the light routines, and that's huge, and eating the right foods and getting that all down pat. But like you said, even when you get that tight, if you let that kind of negative energy overtake you and overpower you, and you overdo it, you can still be exhausted and not be completely where you want to be, right? Uh-oh. Are you still there? I lost you
Yeah,
for
I
a
lost
second.
you just for 1 second. You said you could be doing everything, but
Yeah, and still not really get where you want to go, right? Still not feel like optimized.
amen. Yeah, and that
Yeah.
to me is like, it's really, it's so interesting because like we get on these calls and like people have a lot of the time these specific medical questions,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because like there's a part of me a few years ago that really was like, I'm gonna study all I'm gonna go get a biology degree and study all the books and do all this stuff. And like, I still may go and get in so that I could answer that person's leptin question very, particularly. That might be down the road. As of now, I just basically consider myself a journalist, like someone who's learning a lot, putting pieces together, presenting it in a way, and then an entrepreneur, like an entrepreneur journalist, basically is what I've found myself to be. And yes, people consider me an expert, I guess, to the extent that I can share things that are based on real science and ancient wisdom in a way that people like. So about this idea of the like energy and having good energy, it's like and you just said a point, like we might not feel optimized the way we want to feel. It's like I realized that all that time, all that I wanted to feel, it was like I was looking at the paleo diet when I was on my health journey. We talked about this on our super epic long podcast, like the paleo diet, and then all the autoimmune and even the GAPS diet and like modified carnivore diets, and none of it, like, it might have made me feel a little bit physically better, although actually the diets always made me feel worse the stricter I got, not necessarily because of the food, but because I was more and more attached to like, I'm a miserable wretch who is sick and never going to heal. And then I got into light, and I was like, if I optimize my light environment and I do it all perfectly because, that's what this doctor told me to do, then I'll get it. It was what I was looking for, right? And it just never came. Like, it never came through, no matter how much sun I got, no matter, like, okay, I feel great laying in the sun, but like, what about the rest of my life? Like, how do I organize all of that? And so it was cool that the people on this path, these great individuals and teachers and great, beautiful souls, opened up these doors, and especially, people like Dr. Cruz opening the door into energy and light. I mean, what a guy, like, what an amazing person for doing that. I could never thank him enough, and his contributions to this space, and he's opened up everyone's eyes to light. I mean, literally, like in this health and wellness space, he was the guy. And so it's like, I'm eternally grateful to people like Dr. Cruz and Dr. Wallace and Dr. Alexander Wunsch, these different researchers.
Yes.
And yet I never felt that wholeness that I was looking for. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know what I was looking for. And then I found eventually, these spiritual teachings that resonated, and looked into Joe Dispenza, because he was more of a Western scientific dude who I could kind of relate to more and kind of get down with, let's say. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, like, that's what I'm looking for. But it's not just me. Like, I think everyone's looking for this. Now, I don't want to project on everyone what I think they need. It's like, I think everyone just wants to feel whole, love, joy. And the teaching, the beauty, is that the truth is that we actually are already like that. That is who we are. That is what we are. We are oneness with the universe. And a simple thought experiment of, like, if you zoom out, a few hundred miles from the earth, and you see this, blue sphere, assuming it's a sphere, which, just saying, I don't know if we can trust that the earth is a sphere either. It's kind of crazy. I feel like that I'm saying this on Instagram, but we should question everything, I believe. But nonetheless, let's go with that one. So we see this big earth globe flying through the space and the sun, as the powers that be and the scientists have taught us. And we imagine, like, ourselves back there. It's like, are we really distinct from the earth, or are we just part of the earth? Are we part of this globe, let's say? Are we one with it? And just in the same way you'd look at, like, you'd look at a forest and you'd see, like, individual animals and trees, but you'd also see that there's a forest as a whole. So, like, earth is like its own thing. And if you zoom out further, you're like the universe. It's like one. So in a sense, like, we're already like one. We're already here. Like all these spiritual teachers say, like, we're already here. It's already one. We're already it. And yeah. And so that is, to me, a really great way to understand, like, we are already one. Like, we technically don't have to do anything. Like, even if we die, like, and we move into a different form, our energy and our matter, like, we're still all just one, right? So it's like letting go of this constant, like, striving and needing to be someone or becomes this or do that, or like, even though our whole culture, a lot of our culture is based on that, like, you have to be something, you have to go do something. It's like, there's nothing wrong with going out and accomplishing stuff and doing it. But like, I think that the key distinction is it coming from a place of feeling like I need to be the successful businessman and CEO in order to be worthy, or already knowing that I'm whole, worthy, so blessed that I can then go from there and build something out of a place of wholeness. And it seems like 10 times out of 10, when you do something with the base of wholeness and oneness, and you manifest it in the world, you create more oneness and wholeness and beauty. When you create something out of stress and fear, which I actually largely did with my own business in the early years, like, I was coming from a place of like, I was worrying a lot about, is it going to be successful, and instead of just like treating it like a game. And of course, again, it's hard to treat it like a game because it involves surrendering and accepting that we don't have control. But the truth is that we don't anyway. So it's really just the distinction between accepting what is versus trying to create a world in our mind that is safe and secure. And then anytime anything bugs us or disturbs that idea of safety and security, it triggers us. But it's only triggering us because it's actually sort of threatening our protective barrier that we've built around ourselves, which is very precarious in its foundation because it's actually not even reality. So it'd be better if we just let go of all of that. And there's a great book called The Untethered Soul you may have read that does it's like, I think the best that I found explanation of this philosophy. And by the way, about the earth, the globe, this kind of thing, I don't want people to think per se that I'm like saying the earth is flat. What I would encourage people on all fronts is we should question everything, including the things that we're most led to believe. Okay. Like, it's just, I think that's the general practice. Anytime anything is like, if you challenge this, you are, demonic or something, or you're crazy, or you're pseudoscientific. It's like, what? Science is about questioning our most deeply held foundational beliefs. It's like, why wouldn't we question everything? And if everything that we believe is true, then let's prove it over and over and over again. That's what good science is. So in all respects, diet, astronomy.
I think that's what I was going to say. A lot of people listening to this call are probably they've questioned quite a few things to get to the point where they follow somebody like me or they follow someone like you. So it's just like, let's just keep on that path of continuing to be curious and open-minded, correct?
Amen. Yeah. Amen. So we had probably quite a few more questions. Maybe we just plow through a few of them rapid fire and then time to wrap up here.
Yeah, we always do this, right?
I think it's great.
Turn this into okay. Well, one of the other questions was, I have some questions just about the blue blockers. And one of them is, and I get this question a lot. She says she's watching sunrise in the city. There's lots of street lights. She wants to know if she should wear the yellow screen lenses outdoors during this time, if there's street lights and like building lights everywhere, and she's trying to be outside for sunrise.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That was also something Dr. Cruz mentioned to me, like before the lights coming up, if you happen to walk past some, this is just one perspective, but if you happen to walk past some bright lights, like, it's not really the worst thing because the sun is so powerful, it's going to overpower, those lights and have a pretty beneficial stimulus. If the sky is colored and lighting up, then it's okay. But definitely going into sunset, like if it's getting dark and all the lights are coming on and they're very bright, that's when I'll start to put my sunset lenses on, like pretty much right after the sun goes down. Sometimes I'll wait a little bit, or sometimes in the rare chance, like, or in the rare time that I'm out with people, even rarer, that I would eat late, which I can't remember the last time I ate like dinner late, but late for me meaning like after 5 or 6 p.m. But in the rare case that I were either eating or just out with people, I might wear my yellow daylight lenses in the evening because they still offer basically 99% blue light protection. They just don't also add that extra punch of blocking all the green to make you more tired. And when I say all the green, it's still not all. It's like 95% approximately of green light. And so you just feel a significantly greater fatigue when you block all the blue and the vast majority of the green. But so I'll start with the yellow daylight lenses sometimes during the evening as a starter, and then I'll put on the red sunset lenses as it gets later in the evening. But about this morning situation, I would just go out. If no light has come up, I would typically wear my red sunset lenses. Like if no light, like it's totally dark, I would wear them in general. Yeah, because for me, it just feels better. It's like the sun hasn't come up yet, so I'd like my brain to know that it's still night and it's relaxing.
Yeah, I usually wear my red lenses around the house because I'm like I can kind of not bump into stuff. But if I'm going to go walk outside and it's still dark, I'll put the yellow ones on. But as the light starts to come up, I'll take them off, just because we do have some like gnarly street lights, like light pollution everywhere where I live. But I think that's a great answer to that question. Let's see. And this next one is about the lenses. It says, should lenses be worn throughout the day or only while on screens? Which we've kind of touched on, but.
Yeah, we can just reiterate it. So daylight lenses, I would recommend using in anytime you're in a environment that doesn't have full spectrum natural sunlight. So meaning so if I'm walking around like my apartment and I have some windows cracked and stuff, I won't wear the daylight lenses because I like seeing all the colors. It's part of life and it's beautiful. But anytime I have to be in an office, let's say, or if I had to be in a school, or if I'm at a conference, or I'm even at like a grocery store for more than a short, stint, or any big box store, like any big box store for sure, or hospital or COVID test clinic, I will put on the yellow lenses for sure during the day. And then anything I do at night. So I don't use the daylight lenses as much as I use the sunset lenses. I use the sunset lenses every night because even though I don't use any artificial lights in my house, even if I look at my phone after sunset, I'm wearing the sunset lenses. Even with the red settings on the screen, I still use the lenses because I can just feel that they're protecting from something. Basically it. And same with any screens after sunset, TV, walking down the street, car headlights going by. Like I just wear them in general. Again, the most profound impacts are going to be when you're in a place with really bright lighting, which most people tend to be in a lot. I've created my life where I don't have that very often, and I still use them every night. But for most people, they're like going to be a lifesaver in the beginning, especially until you shift everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've shifted my whole house. That's either red bulbs or incandescent, or I've got my red light machine going, like to illuminate the home. But I still wear them anyway, just because I feel like when I put on my red lenses, I automatically just start to feel like chill. I'm like, it's just like parasympathetic turns on. Like I can literally feel it happening. So even though my light situation like yours is mitigated, I will still wear the red lenses. So
Amen.
Yeah. Someone wants to know what makes raw optics different from something that they could just buy on Amazon. Love this question.
A lot.
Yeah.
So there's a few things. So what makes up a pair of eyeglasses? Well, first and foremost, the energy behind it. So like the energy behind raw optics is that we want to do everything the best we can, and we want to take care of our customers. So when you buy something from raw optics, I guarantee you, me to you personally, whoever's listening to this, and anyone you transmit this energy to, Sarah as well, you can give them our personal guarantee, my personal guarantee, that we will take care of them. So that means on the front end, if they don't like the glasses within 30 days, they can return them. So Amazon has this, 30-day return policy too. So you could get a 30-day return policy. I think it's good. You can exchange them if you don't like them. You can return them if you don't like them for a full refund. And the only question we're going to ask you is, can you give us some feedback? But other than that, there's no questions asked. It's just, if you want to return them, you return them, or you want an exchange, we'll give you an exchange happily. So that's one. Two, if you have any problems whatsoever, because, one in several thousand or whatever, several hundred at the most of frames might have a hinge that is not perfectly perfect, or things like this. We have everything go through very rigid quality controls. In fact, I was just at our facility yesterday. Everything's assembled and ships out of San Diego, so we have very extreme attention to detail, more than if everything was assembled overseas. And basically, we're looking at everything to make it perfect, always, as much as we can. And so if we ever do have any errors, we will immediately exchange someone's product. And even a lot of the time, if someone's glasses are out of the 30-day return window, if they have issues. So no glasses companies, or very few that I'm not aware of any at the moment that have more than 30-day. Like that's typical period for trying, because glasses, you wear them a lot, you know, people sit on them, their dog will eat them, and then they'll try to get refunds. So you can't run a business if you give people, like with a light panel, you can give them 60 or 90 days because it's a more solid, stable device, but glasses you're always taking with you everywhere. So people have that 30-day opportunity to experience the glasses. If there are any issues later that appear to be manufacturer defects, we still will honor and you know, replace the product or something like that, because like I said, we're genuinely interested in the well-being of our customers, and so that's what we do. So that's first, is like the energy of the brand. And the goal overall, when someone invests in Raw Optics, you're actually investing in a large way in me and in the work we're doing in attempting to better understand these connections of light and energy and consciousness and education. So you're actually sort of making an investment in something greater than just a pair of glasses. And that's how it should be when you believe in a company and an organization. So this is a bit of a long answer, but I might as well just address it properly. So the other thing is, let's see, we're also doing development of new products. So like really, really good lighting products. I'm working with the #1 expert in the world to make the best lighting products in the world, which I'm really proud to share. And so that's really exciting. And that's a lot of that's made possible through basically through people being a part of Raw Optics now. So that's really great. So anyway, that's like the energy behind what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise the consciousness of as many people as possible in the world as much as we can. So that's the Raw mission. So secondly, as far as what makes the eyewear, there's frames, there's lenses. So let's start with the lenses, because that's the core. So first of all, the lenses have to block the right wavelengths of light.
Yeah.
And so that's the sunset lenses are sort of our core flagship product for nighttime, although you can't exactly tell that from our website. And that's why I'm going to be redoing our website soon to really emphasize, because that's the product that really helps people reset their sleep and circadian rhythms the most. Mm-hmm. Daylight lenses are a great, you know, addition for people who want to have a little bit clear, like a more visibility at night, or have something to use during the day where they're not going to get super tired, but still have that protection and relaxation of their nervous system and their protection of their eyes, etc. And so, first of all, we offer those two lenses, which many companies don't. They maybe offer something in the middle, or they have a totally clear lens. And the clear lens means it doesn't have enough pigment in it to block any meaningful amount of blue light. So that's the biggest difference between Raw Optics and any Amazon glasses. They're all going to be clear blue light blocking glasses that don't block any actual blue light. They'll block up to 420 nanometers of blue light, but the issue is the LEDs are emitting around 450 nanometers. So they're clear because they block light that isn't present in the environment. And if they did block it, then the light passing through the front would be different than the light coming through the other side of the lens, because that's what happens when you block light. And that would mean that the color of the lens would be not clear, because when you take out any of the full spectrum, what we would call white light or clear, the clear sort of like the space between when we see things, there's light moving, but we don't see it in the air per se. But when you change that light that's passing through the lens, through that material, it's no longer clear. It will take on like a yellowish hue, and the more blue you take out, the more yellow it'll become. If you start removing green, it'll become orange. And if you remove most or all of the green, it'll become deep orange or red. If you remove all of the blue, green, and yellow, it'll be an orange, it'll be fully red. So that's as far as our lenses. We picked the right wavelengths that need to be blocked, both for sunset and for daytime, so for night and for day, with our daylight and our sunset lenses. And we worked with different experts, various experts in light and wellness, to get the information about what lenses or what frequencies we need to block, what wavelengths we need to block. We put all of that information together and then went to the best experts in lens development. So we took the best light researchers, and then we went to the experts in lens development. We asked, how do we block these wavelengths as efficiently, as effectively as possible, maximizing color perception? And we work with the best people in the world for developing pigments for bioprotective roles. And so we put pigments in our lenses based on the body's natural pigment, melanin, which gives our body more of a balanced protection, like meaning if you look at a spectral curve, which our new website, which might take a little while to get done, but we'll have really great displays of our spectral curves and everything you can see. But they're very smooth when you block light, so it's not like jaggedy, or that can cause the brain to be confused and the light to be imbalanced. When you look through our lenses, your eyes actually start to adjust quickly to the colors that are coming in because of this natural pigment we use, melanin in the lenses. And so it's actually a really advanced technology in a relatively simple product in the lenses. So we have the best, basically, lenses in the world that anyone can buy. And secondly, on the frames, or thirdly, I should say, after the energy and the lenses, we have really great frames. So the frames are made of Italian acetate. So we basically did the best thing. So a lot of the times what they do is they use, cheaper, let's say, materials from China, and they'll send them to Italy. They'll screw the hinges together and they'll say made in Italy. We sort of do the opposite because it's actually a better choice for eyewear. So the best frame manufacturing in the world is actually in China because it's very organized and very well done and timely. So we can, because especially with all the supply chain problems, if we were relying on Italy, we wouldn't have any product to sell to help people. So the Chinese do really well at making frames and putting things together, but we use German metal and Italian acetate, which is a plant-based plastic material, which is very relatively environmentally friendly and, biodegradable and so on, but also really high quality. So we use this Italian acetate, German metal, and the frames are put together in China. But then all of our products are finally assembled in San Diego, the frames, the lenses. So there's a real attention to detail in the States, and everything's shipped out of here. So, that's another thing is if people have problems, they're getting really fast delivery and really fast returns and customer support. So that's sort of a really long-winded way of explaining raw optics. There's a reason they cost more, and we're proud that they cost more. It's because they're a lot better than everything else, including other companies like Blue Blocks. The frame quality we offer, the lens technology we offer is far superior. Even if we don't charge significantly more, we could and we probably should, but we don't. Our products are by far the most superior. And you can see that other companies are trying to do 10 things. They're selling EMF this and light panel that, and they're not really doing anything really well. We focused exclusively on glasses to get it right, and then we're going to start shifting into lighting products. So that's why we're the best, and I'm proud to say it.
Yeah, and I was going to also add, if anyone wants to go onto the Light Diet YouTube channel, you've done some really cool videos that actually show the difference between like the raw optics lenses and some of the other lenses that you can get out there.
Yeah, clear light, blue light, clear lenses exposed. People can Google search that. I
think I just sent that to someone this morning because someone had DM'd me. They're like, why buy the raw optics versus this? And I was like, just watch this video. And then she watched
we're
it and
gonna
wrote
have
me
so
back.
many more good videos soon.
Oh, yeah. So those are like, just go on YouTube and search the Light Diet, and you guys can actually get like an illustration of why you probably don't want to get blue blockers from Amazon if you want them to actually be effective and do all the things, give you all the health benefits that Matt and I have been talking about during this conversation, right?
And if you want them to feel good, to work, like you said, to work, and be something you're actually excited to wear. Like we've worked really hard, like even just to get our hinges perfect. Like I've spent so much energy, you can't imagine, on trying to get our hinges to be as perfect as possible. And it's working, and that's to me really important, that people can have the product in their hand and be like, this is actually like great quality. It feels nice. It's going to last for several years if they take good care of it. And, a good pair of eyewear, technically, if you take good care of it, can last a lifetime. If you use it all the time, the lifespan might be 2 years, but that's how it should be. Use the product, get your use out of it, enjoy it, and you'll be stoked, because for $164, which is the starting price of our glasses now, with 15% off, it's more like $140 actually, when you use Sarah's discount code Carnivore Yogi. So $140. There's nothing I can say is definitively nothing that you can buy that will have a bigger impact on your immediate experience of the world and health than these glasses. That's why, given unlimited opportunity as a young guy starting a business with all this information, this is what I pick, because it's so impactful on something that most people aren't looking at all. So it's really powerful, and I recommend everyone really try it.
Yeah, and it's something you're going to use every single day. Like someone might be like, oh, that's a lot, but you're going to literally use it every day, and they're comfortable. They don't dig into your face. Like I'm very sensitive with like different glasses digging into my nose or just being heavy on my face, and they are just so lightweight and comfortable, and they're really high quality. So when I look at like how often I use them, which is literally every single day, to me, it's worth the investment, especially if we're talking about, you know, metabolism and health and just sleep, which so many people have trouble sleeping. It's not just like you're blowing money on something that you're, you know, going to use maybe once and then you forget about it.
Yeah.
Like this is a daily usage product. So it's really an investment in your health, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. And I'll add one more thing. Like, I mean, maybe not everyone, but many people spend $140, you know, every 2 weeks on their alcohol, their wine, whatever, which is, you know, people can do what they want, but it's like, why not invest on something that's going to make you healthier and improve your health?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have more questions, but I actually have to go pick up my daughter.
Let's do another
9 minutes.
Do another one in a few weeks.
I would love to do that. And maybe we can get to some more of these questions, but I'm going to put this, this will stay on my profile, and I'm also going to do a podcast, like put it on audio only and then throw it up on YouTube.
Awesome.
So people can access it that way. That'll be ready by Friday of this week. So yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. How do you record the audio only? Do you just you download the video and rip the audio?
I just have to do a screen record, which is a pain in the butt, but I'll do it and then rip the audio off.
Amazing. Yeah. You might be able to download the video when it says, do you want to post this or download? If you do both, you might be able to just download the video file. And again, I don't know, I'm not the expert, but anyway,
let me do that.
Let's try. But most important, let's get it posted on Instagram. I'll share it on our stories, and so people can check out our stories. Again, check us out at rawoptics.com. Use Sarah's code Carnivore Yogi. That's R-A, no W, R-A Optics, like the sun god of Egypt, rawoptics.com. Carnivore Yogi for 15% off. And that way you're supporting Sarah and us in a big way, actually. So it's really cool, and yourself, most importantly. And so I'll share this on our Instagram stories and the Light Diet and the Raw Optics page as well. And then when you have the podcast, I'll share it. We'll send it out to our email list as well, so more and more people can hear this great information. And Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And then there was one more question that said, can you add a prescription to these lenses?
Yes, thank you. Of course.
Yeah.
My people at our production facility, they love it when we do prescriptions, because it's you know, it's great business, and it helps more people. And they're encouraging me. They're like, why don't you sell more prescriptions? I'm like, okay. So yes, we can do readers, like same, you know, +1, +2, +0.5, whatever. And those are an extra, I believe, about $60 extra. And then the prescriptions, because they cost us a lot more and everything to do, they're instead of $164, they're $294. But for a prescription pair of glasses, I'll just say, with a high quality frame and this technology of lenses and the prescription, when I first started this and I had to have them custom made, that product was going to be around $400 to $450 retail. So $294 versus $450. I have friends who's paid literally, they're trying to get specific lenses and that weren't even as good as what we have now. They've paid retail to their optician like $600.
I was going to say $500 or $600.
Yeah. So for $294 with our lens technology, a lot of the time $294 is a prescription without our lens technology, just a good frame and a prescription. So you're getting a really good deal for $294 for a prescription through Raw Optics. So yeah, we're very glad that we can offer that service as well. And that will also be advertised much more on our next website edition. And Sarah, I'll text you so that we can schedule another one of these in two or 3 or 4 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, let's do it for sure. Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much. It's so great speaking with you always.
Yeah, good to see you.
Have a great day.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.